Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Diane. I'm a board certified sexologist and I am known as the libido doctor. So I run a libido club where I help monogamous couples find passion, pleasure, better sex, and really just that depth of relationship, really looking at the science, the research, the juicy play that we get to have to bring novelty and fun back into long term relationships.
Ugh, we love that. We love bringing all of that back into the fold when you're in a long term relationship. And I think we're really excited to talk about passion today.
Yes.
So, why does passion ebb and flow over time in a long term relationship?
Yeah, so many people talk about this new relationship energy and whether people know that term or not, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think everybody knows that feeling of that giddiness and that fun and that excitement and all of those hormones that are being released at the beginning of the relationship. And what's really happening there in a lot of ways in the beginning is dopamine. It's like literally our brain on drugs. Natural drugs, but drugs just the same. So when we get into these longer term relationships, what winds up happening most of the time is we start seeing people more regularly. And maybe we move in together, we combine our lives. And all these things, which can be wonderful, they don't support our dopamine. And so dopamine, this chemical of the brain, it's a motivating chemical, right? So it drives us towards something. And then when we get that thing, we get more of this chemical. But what people don't realize, a lot of people have heard about dopamine and its use for motivation. What a lot of people don't realize is one of the things that drives dopamine is that space. So like I always come back to chocolate cake when I use this example around like, okay, think of your favorite dessert or your favorite cocktail, just something yummy that you love, and maybe you're not going to have it until Friday night, and you're on Tuesday, and you're thinking about getting together with your friends, and you're like, oh, that's going to be great. We're going to my favorite spot, and that anticipation is actually driving that dopamine. It's like it's actually driving that motivation. It's driving that desire. And so same thing happens with our romantic relationships. And so one of the things that happens is as we get further along, and typically we don't wind up creating that space. And so there's no ability for that dopamine to say rise because there's no anticipation. You're gonna see, honey at breakfast, honey at dinner, honey in bed, and all those things. And so because of that, we wind up not having the same level of motivation towards our partner, towards sex, towards passion, because our brain doesn't have those same chemicals.
Mhm. So, it's chemical. It's not like proof that you guys aren't compatible for each other long term? Question mark?
I mean, I think there's always, I mean, it's hard to say from a compatibility standpoint. Obviously, there's more to the picture than just this.
Mhm.
But that whole thing, right, where it's like we're in these relationships and the sex starts getting, say, less frequent or less enjoyable or boring or anything like that. And a lot of people will be like, oh, that's the barometer of the relationship. Like, of course, that can happen. Like, I've gone through enough breakups in my life to know, like, yeah, there's times where it's like this person you're not connecting with, they're not in the same value system or whatever it may be. And sometimes the sex changing can be a sign of it. But oftentimes it's not. And if you still have a level of like love and care and like deep to your core, you want to be with this person, but the sex just isn't that great anymore. That could be chemical.
That is fascinating. And I feel like, I don't know, very empowering, which is
Mhm.
nice. Um, but my question is like, what's different about the people who are like, yeah, we have sex 5 times a week and we've been together 15 years. Like, what's up with them? What did they do that's so
The-
perfect and right?
What are they
Can you
taking?
tell I'm not
yeah.
one of them?
I mean, I think, what they're doing, right, is like it's going to be different for every couple. So it's
Mhm.
like what they're doing from a standpoint of if we have all these different couples up that let's say we're doing a panel,
Mhm.
let's say we have a panel of couples and what they're doing, I do think will be different from couple to couple. But there are, I think, some commonalities that we see and some things that are common is actually creating space enough to miss each other. And this doesn't have to mean going on a trip. This just might mean like, hey, I'm going to not be texting every moment throughout the day, or I'm going to start flirting again on a Monday because we have date night on Wednesday and I really want to have some sexy time. And I'm going to use that flirt throughout the week to create that kind of longing, right? So there can be some of that that's happening. There can also be a sense of just that deep depth of security that is allowing people to go deeper. And I had another point. What was my other point? Oh, the other point is like with the safety and the novelty, there is that desire sometimes, or that process where I think people in long-term relationships that are healthy and that are having healthy sex and continued sex, there's still a level of curiosity, right? And I think because curiosity is another thing that we see early on in the relationships. That's part of like that dopamine as well. So that's part of that chemical. If I'm curious about somebody, or if I'm curious about even like trying a new position or trying a new sex toy or whatever it is with somebody, I'm allowing, that's still a different way of creating that space, that novelty, that newness, that dopamine, that desire is all created from these other ways too.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask because I'm like, it sounds like our long term relationships, because people like to cohabitate, we just become more enmeshed as we stay together. It doesn't sound like it's a spot where that facilitates passion and this space. So it's like, how do we access that space when we're living together? And so I love those examples that you're saying of like, maybe you start flirting on a Monday because date night's on a Wednesday. It's like, I feel like we need more of those examples of how to kind of distance ourselves so that we're still coming back to each other. We're not just constantly like at each other.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like as simple, it's like we kind of forget how to flirt, right? It's like so common that we actually forget how to flirt with our partners. And, it's as simple as like, okay, I'm going to actually put a pair of cute underwear on and I'm going to start flirting about my underwear, right? You can start you can take it all sorts of ways. But, if you're going to rip the Band-Aid off, it can be as really as simple as something like that. And I think the other big thing is the vicious cycle that we get into this is like, especially as women, like understanding the different arousal cycles between men and women, I think is really important to this conversation around passion. Have you guys had anybody on here talking about like Susan Basson's work and the arousal cycle? Have you guys gone through that? I didn't see that.
We've talked about like responsive and spontaneous desire.
Okay, this is a little bit different. So I think this would be a cool thing for listeners to hear, because like even in medical school, right? When we talked about the process of humans going through like becoming, say, like aroused and becoming like feeling that desire, it's really this old four-phase model. And we kind of go through this excitement and there's this plateau, we get this climax, and there's this refractory period. And we were taught in school, like that's just, and I was in school about 20 years ago, and we were just taught that was women and men, that everybody has the same process. And it actually back then really was like disheartening to me, because I was like, I wasn't finding myself as a woman getting aroused in that way it was talked about. And then years later found Rosemary Basson's work. And so her work really looked at research around this process. And instead of being this kind of like linear, like you go up, you kind of peak, and then you go down, her way of looking at the female arousal is like it's a circle. It's nonlinear. It's like it's a woman's body. It's curvy. And it has all of these entry points and exit points. And so entry and exit points are anything from the chores to the stress to all these different types of things that can come into her mind. So for a woman, it can be very easy to like start to feel a sense of arouse. And then there's a thought that goes through the woman's mind around like, oh crap, I forgot to make my kids lunch. And then it's like back down. And the man can like much more compartmentalize that, right? So it's so much easier to then say, oh, I'm on this arousal track. I am focused on you. And so that's one of the problems I think we get too, because women, it is very interesting in this circle. One of the biggest things that creates more desire in women is being physically intimate. So that's like nature's like crazy thing, right? So you have to like being physically intimate makes you have the desire. But if you don't have the desire, how are you going to be physically intimate?
Yeah. It feels like a lose-lose.
It's a cruel joke.
Yeah.
Feels like
Yeah.
a cruel, mean joke.
Yeah. This is all nature's, funny, I think, humor
Mhm.
experiment.
Mhm.
Yeah.